And we will call the special 109 board meeting for October the 12th, 2022 to order at 5:33 p.m. First order of business is the approval of the minutes for the September 28th meeting. Did everybody get a copy?
Before we go, there's one small edit on that, and I'm sharing it on my screen. This section under new business, I've just edited that a little bit. So if that was not on your copy that was sent out, so if we could approve with the changes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes with the change.
I second it.
Okay, we may have jumped a little bit here. I had a couple of things that I noticed in the meeting. If you look under correspondence, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well,
sorry.
If you look under correspondence to the board, the next under number 1, the next to the last sentence, he further stated the diversion tracking, which had been completed in the early 1990s. I think that should have been, which had been initiated in the early 1990s.
Agreed. Made that change.
And the other thing is also very minor in the last line of number 2. At the end, it says, as he felt there were a couple inaccuracies, probably should be a couple of inaccuracies.
Got it.
So we had a motion and a second before I brought up those changes. I guess those are not substantive changes. So,
Well, I can amend my motion and say with the changes that Pete offered and the changes that Bob offered.
okay. Do we have a second to that?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other discussion, changes, corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the September 28th board meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? Hearing none, the meeting minutes for the 28th are approved.
Mr. Schindler, if we could, I would like to take a moment to introduce our new assistant county attorney that is going to represent the 109 board, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. I would like to introduce Robbie Howard. I've known Robbie for quite some time. I know he works with the Code Enforcement Board, and he has worked with us on several ordinance changes and enforcement matters. I think we're lucky to have Robbie. I think he's a good guy. So just want to introduce him there. He's on your screen. Robbie, do you want to say anything?
Well, I'm excited to get to work with you all. I have a lot of learning to do, but it seems like a good opportunity to kind of get involved in some important issues for the community. So I'm excited and looking forward to it.
Pete, if you take down your shared screen, we could actually see him maybe.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably sound smarter if you don't see me. So maybe.
We doubt that.
All right, well, welcome, Mr. Howard. We're glad to have you aboard, and I'm sure we'll be bringing stuff up on more than one occasion. All right, thank you, Pete. I noticed we have no budget report, no correspondence, no action items, no old business, no new business, which brings us to the advisory committee report. It's the reason we're having this meeting.
Mhm.
Good evening, board members and Chairman Schindler. The advisory committee has taken, I think, some pretty great lengths to review and work with staff, develop a 5-year plan that we're presenting to you tonight for your consideration. I'm sure there'll be more comments inbound, and once this gets to the public comment period, I'm sure there'll be opportunities for everybody to offer their input. But Pete may want to take a moment and go over some of the more recent additions we've made, Pete.
Sure.
Pete, before
yes,
you go any farther, I think it's important that we note that at this stage of the game, this is the draft 5-year plan.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And not to take anything away from you, Bruce, but just to make that clear, this is the draft 5-year plan, and we're actually starting the process to adopt it. But so go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
sure. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Can everybody see the says the background information?
Yes.
The visible. Okay. So the last meeting, we went through multiple chapters of this plan, and in those chapters, nothing has changed. So what I'll do is quickly go through if anybody has any questions on anything, and then I'll spend a little bit more time on just a few chapters. Obviously, any question on anything and anywhere, more than happy to jump to that and do it. So again, this is the background information. This is who we are. This is says that we are a 109 board non-taxing district. These are the members. Solid waste coordinator is me. And it gives all of the different advisory committee members. It says that have to list somebody as a preparer. So I put my name in there in case everything goes wrong. Have somebody to blame. And that we are going to adopt this through resolution. That resolution will come after we have had our public hearing and everybody has agreed. We do have to have the affidavit from the newspaper when it goes out to public notice and a signed copy of the resolution, but we'll get to all that. So the collection system has not changed in any way. And we talked quite a bit about that at the last meeting. Is there any questions on that chapter since the last meeting? This is the specific action items. If not, I will continue on into the disposal system. We did not cover the disposal system. And what I will say is when we went back and at our last advisory committee meeting, we had a lot of discussion about these figures. We did make some changes. There is a lot that goes into these projections. And what I would say is, I don't know how accurate they are in the grand scheme of things because we're forecasting out 20 years. But what I do know is that I believe that these predictions or projections cover what we would be doing. I think that they would present a little bit on the high side. So I feel like that they do cover what the intent of this is, which is to project that 5, 10, and 20 years into the future. There is appendices that are going to be attached to this plan. I have not sent those appendices out. Most of them are either ordinances, they're procedures, or forms. In this case, this calls for a list of landfills to which case there's more than can fit onto the form. Most people don't have that many, but that is going to be in an appendice. There is also asking for a complete inventory of disposal facilities. That is also on a separate form. And that would also just include the landfills plus CMEX, which is a waste tire generator, which waste tires are considered disposal. We have the total capacity authorized to date, which is really an important number. And one of the things to keep in mind here is, as we do not have a community host agreement that would specify a lot of the tonnages that are allowed to come into the community. So we set this in our plan. And these are numbers that can be changed however we need them to be changed. Right now, based upon a conversation that we had, Bob and I, and looking at the generation projections, we felt that 10,000 tons for the 5-year cycle is more than enough to cover anything that's coming in. So we're setting this starting over. So their capacity, yes,
I think you mean 10 million.
10 million. My bad. Yeah, you're right, because that wouldn't be much of a capacity. Also, 10 million tons. So as of the signing of this document, that means that to date, there's 0, and there's 10,000 tons or 10 million tons of remaining capacity. So we'll monitor that each year, and that capacity will change each year unless we change these numbers, which we can if we need to. We have the listed here as a description of the county's debris management plan, which is extremely important, to be honest with you, considering the fact that we've had a lot of disasters, even in our area in Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky. So we want to be ready for that. I want, if anyone read this, I want you to keep in mind that the debris management plan is a living document that is in draft form right now. There are some questions that need to be answered, and we will do that. My first priority right now is to get this plan done, and then we would go back and refocus on this debris management plan. The gentleman that Metro has is with the Department of Public Works, which is Jason Brandt. He is also out of town. He's down in Florida getting some hands-on experience in debris management right now. So he's going to come back fresh with a bunch of ideas. And then we'll continue to do that. In the appendices, there is a copy of the draft plan. It's fairly long. And this is just a summary of it. So unless there's any questions on this, on the debris management plan as it's been summarized, I can go ahead and move on. No questions? Good. So I think we've already talked about the strengths.
I do have a question. So
Yes.
you said that we don't have the debris management plan completed, and I understand that, but we're summarizing in here. Are we indicating in here that this is a summary of a draft? I mean, someone report is saying that this is not a final plan.
What they're asking us to do is describe it. This
Okay.
is not the plan.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we need that. Do you feel like that we need that?
Well, I don't know. You're more of an expert on this than I am. I mean, I just had a concern about the draft plan, and I plan to work on it. And I just don't want this to be mistaken as the final plan, because I had some questions about the other plan. So,
Well, I do say right here that Louisville Metro adopted, and Louisville Metro has adopted an emergency operations plan. But that does not mean that the debris management plan is is complete. So maybe if I add,
Well, I think it's also important to note that the instructions for filling out this 5-year management plan doesn't assign the actual drafting of a debris plan to the waste management district. It indicates that we have to describe the county's emergency disaster plan, and basically what Pete and the advisory committee have done in putting this in here is just, this is even though it's fairly long, this is basically just a general outline of the actual county's debris management plan. And we, as the waste management district, are not responsible for drafting that. We could play a big part in it, or we could have a lot of input in it when the final plan, or if the current plan is changed in any way. But we're not required, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, but we're not required to do the disaster plan as part of our solid waste management 5-year planning.
correct, the responsibility is delegated through the Metro Government's Emergency Operations Plan, which covers much more than just debris management. It assigns that responsibility to the Department of Public Works. As it relates to this, I'm giving a summary and attaching the draft plan. But yes, you're right in the fact that we will play a significant role in development or the continued development of the actual debris management plan. Some of the issues that I know that we've identified is there are some ordinance that would prevent us from doing certain things when it comes to collecting co-mingled waste. And I think that we've talked about that in the past, that we maybe need to change some ordinance and stuff like that. So to give the board some authority and flexibility to be able to handle disasters and through an approval process. So the waste district will be involved definitely in the development of that plan, but it's not the responsibility of the waste district. So I did add this. The summary pertains to a draft debris management plan at this time.
Thank you. I think that should cover the concern that I had, so.
Good. So disposal strengths, we have a landfill in our county. It has a significant amount of capacity, enough for our 10-year requirement to make sure that we have. And, I think that it's a state-of-the-art landfill, and we're lucky to have it. We're lucky to have the disposal space. The solid waste management area has several other transfer stations that are located within the county that ship out of county to other landfills in the region. These landfills also provide additional capacity assurance for our waste. And as part of this, I do have to go out and get letters from at least 2 landfills that they guarantee us the capacity for the next 10 years, which I have, and they will be in the appendices. One is from Waste Management, the Outer Loop landfill, and the other one is from Valley View. Both of those are in Kentucky. We are lucky that we have a solid waste energy facility, waste to energy facility, and that is for the waste tires, and that is CEMEX. I can tell you that they go through over 3 million tires a year, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when it doesn't break down. And it actually reduces emissions because it was a coal-fired plant. And by using tires, it actually burns a little bit cleaner. So it did improve that. Plus, it helped us get rid of tire piles, and it pulls tires from all over this whole region. We also have numerous other drop-off sites that's relatively short distance, makes it easy for people to dispose of their waste. And we have several beneficial use facilities that exist for other materials. The weaknesses, still a lot of recycling that goes into disposal streams. And these are recyclables that have a home already for recovery. It's not like we're going to have to do anything different. We have the capacity to recycle these things if we can get it out of that stream. And then one of the things that we talked quite a bit about at the committee level was that we have a final closure for Southern Materials on Voigt Avenue is nearly complete. It's not fully complete yet. The site has accepted C&D and other inert materials as beneficial use under an agreed order. Once that is filled, that agreed order will go away. It has to be complete by late next year. But as that is going to close, there's probably about 100,000 tons of material that needs to find a new home. And if we don't find a new home, then it will go to disposal and it will take up landfill space that we would rather reserve for things that can't be recovered. So it would make an impact if we can't find a home for that, and we would drop 2% in our overall diversion rate. Now, I don't think that all of it will find its way there. I believe that we'll get some recovery of a significant portion of that. And there are other beneficial use facilities in the region that could probably take up some of this slack. So that was one thing it's a weakness. We do have beneficial use locations, but they do end up getting full. So to help us out, we're going to, number one, assist Metro government in updating the debris management plan for disasters. This would include reviewing ordinances that would give Metro more flexibility for collecting, processing, and disposing of waste during declared emergencies. We talked a little bit about that. We're going to hire a consultant to improve local and regional end-use opportunities for gypsum, drywall, concrete, and shingles, with the goal of establishing improved conditions for a mixed C&D waste recycling. That goes into that whole impact of trying to find a home for some of the material that's being beneficially used right now. So drywall is a big one. Shingles is a big one. And we've been working on those for quite some time. I believe that by this plan, we could use a little bit of help in getting some of those things established. Negotiate a new community host agreement. This is something that we know that we need to do. We have given that to the advisory committee to start working on it, and then consider amending the ordinance to allow flexibility during emergency situations. That was actually created as its own individual item. Any questions on disposal? Okay, on to recycling.
Hey, Pete, I'm sorry. This is Andy Reynolds with WM.
Yes.
This is, self-serving, but not entirely meant to be. I know that there's a reference to the CEMEX facility. Has there been any thought given to referencing the RNG facility at Outer Loop as a strength in the system? I mean, it's not diverting material, but it means that anything that is being disposed is creating a beneficial use. I mean, it's generating natural gas,
I
from
think it's a
the
good-
waste. So I mean, that's again. I mean, I know that I represent waste management, so I'm not trying to plug WM. I think we do think that's a strength, though. It's not a reason not to divert, but it's a positive for what does get landfilled.
I think it is a positive. And as you said, it's really it's not diverting anything, but it is a positive for what we have going on. At this particular time, I don't think I would be in favor of adding it, but I think that we would want to make that clear in the future. Totally up to the board on whether or not they think that we need to go ahead and put something about that in here, and we can do so. Hey, Andy, I'll give you a call and talk to you about it.
Yeah, sure. No, and no problem at all. Like I said, I just wanted to. That was something that popped up to me a couple times when you mentioned the waste to energy facility at CMEX. It seemed like it was at least a little bit parallel.
Pete, can I ask, why do you think, I mean, it seems to me that putting one sentence in here about it would be not a bad idea. But can you tell us why you don't think it's needed or important at this time?
I think the difference that I see in CMEX and the landfill gas facility, CMEX actually brings in a solid waste and uses it as a fuel. So it is directly related to conversion. The landfill gas facility, it is just the material, the waste is deposited as it would be. And then the gas system is extracting a product off of that. So I do think it's very similar. One, I think, is more diversion, and the other one is using waste that is going to remain in place to a certain degree. It's already been disposed. So I'm not opposed to putting a sentence in there.
I was going to jump in, Mary Rose, and say that probably the best way to handle it at this point in time would be for having during the public comment period, which is part of when we advertise this for public comment, is Waste Management could make that as part of the public comment period, and then we could consider it when we have received all the public comment, rather than try to spend time changing or deciding on wording tonight, since this is just a draft plan.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. And Andy and I can talk about it. Maybe we can come up with something to put in.
Sure. And sorry to derail things.
No, you're good.
Not a problem.
Okay, to move on to the recycling section. I believe that, I'm not sure that, did we go over this one? I don't think that we did.
No.
Okay, this is a fairly big section, and it really is one of the main things that we do. It starts off with, do we recycle in our solid waste management area? And yes, we do. It asks us to describe the registration process, to where waste haulers, recyclers, and all have to register with the county. That is something that is a continuing thing that we've done for years. So it's described. Do we have a plan to reduce the need for land disposal of yard waste? Yes, we do. I listed the ordinance, which states that no yard waste may be deposited in any landfill or solid waste management facility in the county, except for a composting facility. I listed that no yard waste may be mixed with any other solid waste and placed out for collection. No yard waste may be commingled in the same collection vehicle, and no yard waste may be commingled with other waste in any vehicle hauled out of a transfer station. All that being said, that's where we need our flexibility when it comes to a disaster, because when homes are smashed and everything's intermixed, you're going to have tree debris intermixed with construction debris. And as of right now, ordinance doesn't really allow it collected any other way. So it is a requirement that composting be offered, and that yard waste cannot be mixed and taken anywhere else and put into a landfill. And this just cites, it wants us to list every city that collects yard waste at the curb. We don't list each one because that's just too many. So what we wrote is 51-300 requires yard waste collection to be offered to all residential customers, cities, HOAs within the solid waste management area. So we talked with the state about this language and they were good with it. Wants us to list the compost facilities, which we have one that's in county, which is the Outerloop Recycling Facility, has a compost facility, but we also have collection sites for Smith Creek for all of our yard waste. So that's where it goes. What do we do to reduce land disposal through recycling, reuse, and waste reduction? We do a lot. We have a curbside collection system. We have a residential drop-off system. We conduct events like our pop-up drop-off events. We have other recycling such that companies such as battery retailers have take back of batteries. Lowe's and Home Depots actually take back certain things, bulbs, electronics. There's electronic take back programs, all those things. And then you have national programs like Call to Recycle and toner cartridge recycling. So there's lots of different smaller avenues for that. We do have some food waste that is composted at Smith Creek, and we also have it at a education-based program at the University of Louisville. Education-wise, we have a very strong education program and team. There is many different outreach programs that cover not only countywide programs, but specific education programs called like Recycle Right tagging program, the No Waste Ambassador program. There are school outreach programs and general recycling presentations. It just goes on and on with a lot of the stuff that we do education wise. And that does not include other education that is done by home rule cities, other private waste collectors through their own systems, and then from material recovery facilities that may also do education about tourism and the such. There's other organizations that have the same sustainability minded message. One is Brightside, the Kentucky Science Center, and Louisville Metro Green Team that work on many things, sustainability, but also includes recycling and composting and reuse. This asks us about how we deal with motor oil, battery, and antifreeze. And we operate, the Waste District operates the 3 recycling drop-offs that accept used motor oil and antifreeze. And we also have the household hazardous materials drop-off site that accepts many of the same items. And the commercial drop-off sites that I had mentioned, like used oil change places. Same thing for the household hazardous waste and how do we handle that to keep it out of the landfill. Got into quite a bit of detail there. And electronics. Louisville Metro Government operates what's called CyberCycle, and people can recycle electronics for free. They also are working, or we've implemented a program called Done With It, where if you drop off certain items, they can be refurbished and given to parts of the community that are digitally divide because they can't afford. So we have that as well. And then we do have ordinance in the USD through the Department of Public Works that electronics are prohibited from being put into your waste stream. That is not a requirement throughout the whole solid waste management area, but one that was adopted by the Department of Public Works. I don't think that it would be a bad idea if we could try to expand that through the rest of the county. Is office paper recycled? Yes, but we don't have a specific office paper recycling program. Metro used to have one for Metro government buildings, but Metro government buildings went on to a single stream system. So we don't have that anymore. We assist Jefferson County Public Schools through the Partnership for a Green City with recycling. They have their own recycling program, but we work with them through contracts to get better deals. Our strengths, we have a really robust education system that targets collection and recycling materials generated from residents and businesses, which includes a lot of different, Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, outreach programs, and technical assistance and speaking engagements. We have lots of different types of disposal. We have 3 material recovery facilities, 9 metal salvage facilities, a shingle recycler, concrete recycler, compost facility, in 2 locations accepting electronics and 2 that are accepting inert materials. So we have a lot of sites that's able to accept a lot of things. We have a lot of these drop-off sites are open 5 days a week. We have residential self-haul locations for all those different commodities. And we have numerous drop-off sites, all of them relatively short driving distance to anybody that really wants to do it right. Our weaknesses, this is the biggest part. We don't have a recycling option right now for mixed construction and demolition waste. I think that's going to be an important item that we want to work on, and that is why we wanted to hire the consultant to work on a few of the individual commodities that make it more difficult for that mixed C&D recycling processing to take place. If we can do better at those, I think it makes anything that's more viable. We don't have any outlets right now for the gypsum drywall. That's a problem. Shingle to asphalt has fallen out of favor. That's another area that we really need to work on. And construction and demolition reduction and reuse education does not exist. We need to have somebody working with demolition contractors on way to reduce waste from those activities. On-site recycling is not available to residents of to all residents of multifamily buildings or complexes having 9 or more units within the urban services district, or multifamily complexes of any size outside of the urban services district. It is available to be purchased, but it's not something that's really been built out. We are working with the apartment association on that to build something out, but I'll get to that in a minute. The recycling participation rate is low in the unincorporated areas where individuals have to contract or subscribe directly. That rate is estimated participation rate is about 23%, whereas the rest of the county is probably up closer to 50%. So that's an area that definitely needs some attention. We don't have any permanent self-haul locations that's dedicated to reuse of materials. Someplace like if you went up to the Monroe County up in Indiana, they had a section for reuse. If you brought in a hazardous material that was in its original container, unopened, it can be put on a shelf and somebody else can take it for free and use it. Lumber, anything like that, and it could even be virtual. Something that a business has a bunch of this, they can place it on an exchange, another business can come get it, and it's not disposed. So those are the things that we do not have. The technical assistance programs in education outreach, we do have those, but they're not formalized and they're not detailed enough to where we can hand out a toolkit to a business or a multifamily unit. Those things are complex because there's so many different configurations of those businesses that we need to really work to develop those. So we need to develop those in consultation with organizations and associations in those sectors so that we can try to bring on as much of that material as we can. A big thing is we have inconsistent and overly complex communication and messaging associated with recycling, trash, organics, reuse programs in the solid waste management area, and that causes confusion and increased contamination of recycling. So we have multiple haulers, multiple facilities that accept material, and a lot of small cities or HOAs, and all the messaging might be slightly different depending upon where the person lives. If they move, they're having to learn the new system. So that's one of the things that's difficult. People have gotten used to the resin identification code, the little recycling symbol with a 1 through 7 on it. It really was never intended to be used to say that it was recyclable. It is a number that identifies the type of plastic that it is. And that was more towards the MRFs. So that is something that it's helpful, but it can cause confusion with residents. And we have a general perception problem. Too many times you hear people say recycling just goes to the landfill, so I don't do it. Some parts of the city receive recycling and other services for free, and I don't. Residents should not have to pay for recycling if someone else is making money off the materials. It goes on and on. And any kind of survey you do, you hear these things repeated over and over. Incentives for diversion. There's not many incentives in general when they can be a strong motivator for many different reasons. So we do not have anything like that. An example of that would be something like a pay as you throw program, where you have garbage, yard waste, and recycling in one bill, but you're only charged based upon the amount of garbage that you generate. So, if you recycle and compost really well, your garbage container gets smaller and you're charged less. We don't have that here, and we're not proposing that here at this time. But it's an interesting way to do things. In enforcement, sometimes we cannot do a very good job of enforcing people placing yard waste in their garbage container. And it's particularly bad in the unincorporated subscription area because not many people have yard waste collection in that area. So that's where we get a lot of yard waste in the residential waste stream. So what do we want to do? We want to create outreach and technical assistance programs for each waste sector, such as residential, ICI, self-haul, and C&D. And with the focus of reducing waste, recycling more, reducing contamination, right-sizing services, how to conduct waste audits and capture rate studies that allow for effective waste management decision-making, how to contract, importance of reducing and recycling, and where the recycling goes once it's collected. All those things as we want to create a technical assistance and outreach program that educates that out there. We want to create a roadmap to standardizing waste management messaging across the solid waste management area. How we do that, we don't know. That's why we have to create a roadmap so that we can get more consistent messaging, which reduces confusion, which reduces contamination, and increases recycling. We also wanted, again, the same thing, hire a consultant to assist in improving the local and regional end-use markets for gypsum, concrete, and shingles. It's the same thing. We also added here that we want to, at the same time, look at developing some recommendations that the Waste Management District can take to prepare the solid waste management area for an influx of spent electric vehicle batteries, with the goal of becoming a leader in handling EV batteries. So it's going to be coming. A lot of them are out there. So we're going to have we want to be in a good position to deal with it in the future. We want to explore the expansion of full service recycling sites to accept additional materials such as some household hazardous materials, latex paint, electronics, and hard plastics. We don't have the room or the facility to be able to do that. So we want to be able to expand that and do more at our self-serve or at our full service recycling sites, much like Monroe County in Indiana tour that we went to. We want to create a marketing program to complement our existing education and collection to improve our public perceptions about reducing and recycling. And it should include elements that are part of the outreach and technical assistance program in 1 and 2. And then we also want to perform capture rate studies to obtain baseline metrics so that we can kind of measure our improvement as we implement these programs. And it also help us identify patterns and identify our greatest opportunities for behavior change. So those are the things that we want to do in our recycling over the next 5 years. Any questions on any of those? Does anybody need to take a break? I think we did open dumps and at the last meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think we did.
We also did litter at the last meeting. Facility siting, I don't think that we did this, but it won't take but a minute to do because what this has to do with is planning and design, where people can place a solid waste management facility in our community. A lot of that has already been planned out through the land development code and all of the different things that someone has to go through. The one thing that I will add in here is important is the Waste Management District also conducts what's called consistency determinations. So the state's not going to give somebody a permit to operate in Jefferson County unless they've come to the Waste Management District and the Waste Management District says it's in alignment with the current 5-year plan. If it's not in alignment, the district can choose to amend the plan to allow it. So it's basically saying that we have local control, that somebody just can't come in and put a solid waste management facility in our community without some kind of local input. So between land development code and the Waste Management District consistency determination process, that's how we handle any incoming facilities. Not all facilities have to go through that. It's mainly disposal facilities, which we haven't had much of that. The last determination we did was CEMEX, their waste to energy facility. That's been some years ago. So what it does is it gets into that process and the way that has to be done. And it's a lot of it is straight from the land development code. And it just asks questions about how we do that. Our strengths is we have a really good, robust code for planning and design of these facilities to make sure that they're doing what they need. A weakness is you have us doing consistency determinations and you have the land development code board also making a ruling on something. And I believe that sometimes it's not really clear for a business as to who they apply for first and who they go through first. So that's one weakness. So the only specific action that we've listed is that we want to create a step-by-step guide to siting solid waste management facilities within the solid waste management area. We want to build some guidance for businesses that want to operate a solid waste management facility in Louisville. Any questions on that? And then we have enforcement. I believe that we went through enforcement at the last meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which leads us to the last chapter, financial mechanisms. Keep in mind that these are just projections. We're not held to these whatsoever, and it's extremely difficult to forecast these things out. So what I've done is I've looked at our revenue stream, and we get about this many license fees a year, and I projected about a 2% increase per year. Sale from the proceeds from recyclables. Last year we did about 50,000. The year before we did 0 or 5,000 or wherever it was. So I've put $25,000. If anybody knows the where recycling commodity prices are going to go, they need to tell us because nobody knows. State litter grants, 380,000 is what we average a year. I put in the rollover amount. There's not a space in a rollover amount for us to put this into the plan, but I needed to put it in here because I think that they're important to show. So this gives us the anticipated amounts of revenue per year for the next 5 years during this plan. So in the expenditures, I've got in year 2 and 3, I've got $500,000 each, and those are for the expansion of the staff recycling centers to take on those new materials. It's going to require new buildings and equipment to be able to do that. So I doubt that we'll use $500,000, but that's what we're projecting out just for the purposes of this plan. Personnel, I gave the budgeted amount and increased it 2%. The litter cleanups, it's just a wash from, we expect that we're going to spend all of our litter grant money. The contractual services is listed at 480,000 and just goes up 10,000 each year. This is the household hazardous materials contract, which if we expand, we would hope that we get more. And it has the marketing firm that we just hired, that extra money, and we're hoping that we can do that every year. And it also includes an estimated amount for consulting when we do our studies and we try to improve the markets for construction and demolition material. After that, there is a item here at the first, $200,000 for 4 document shredders. This is an ask that's probably coming up to you guys. At our pop-up drop-off events, shredding is hugely popular and it's slow to process. We want to try to drain off that from the pop-up drop-offs by making that to be the first thing that we can take at our staffed recycling centers and at the WRC. So it would be available 5 days a week, and we would kind of bleed off that demand in the community. We're estimating about $200,000 for those. We have no idea what the actual cost is. I looked them up. It's going to depend upon the electricity and a lot of other things. So I put it in there at estimated $200,000 in the first year. So these are our totals, which, as you will see, are more than our expected expenditures. And that's why that rollover amount is so important. And at the end of these 5 years, we would still have a rollover amount if our revenues are where we're at. And it wouldn't be 2 million, it would be closer to probably $500,000. And when we get into the next 5-year plan, or when you guys get into the next 5-year plan, we have a better idea of what we're doing. So that is the financial side of things. Any questions on the financials? With that being said, that is the plan without all the appendices. as Bruce had said, this was voted on at the committee level, and it was unanimous. It wasn't, not everybody was there, but of the people that was there, it was unanimous. I hope that you guys can get behind this plan to be able to put it out to public comment. If you guys decide that, yes, you're ready to do that, then we can get it in the newspaper by Friday. And then from there, I think that we would have our, well, let me just pull it up. If you guys, want to send this out to public comment, we would have it out on October 14th, Friday. We would have a public hearing, would be scheduled for November 14th at the South Central Regional Library on Jefferson Boulevard. If nobody makes a request, we don't have to have that hearing, but we'll have to have a hearing. And then after that, the board would consider all of the comments from the public and from any other entity, and we would vote on that on November 17th, right before Thanksgiving. We have a little bit of wiggle room if we need to make a change, but not much wiggle room. While the state gave us till December 15th, you also have to realize that there's a lot of holidays and a lot of people gone, and we really need to get this done as soon as we can so we don't have to deal with that. So there's the plan. And it's up to you guys now if you feel comfortable sending it out.
Okay. All right.
I think you're muted, Mary Rose. There you go.
I got it. Is this document that you're showing us right now the same as the document that you sent us with the handouts? Or are there changes? This,
It is the same.
okay,
It is the same. I might have colored some of the text, but it is the same.
thank you. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the meeting, but thank you.
Now you're muted, Bob.
Sorry about that. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I would assume we need at least a voice vote to authorize you to proceed to advertise it for public hearing.
I would think so. We need a motion to send it out.
Anybody want to make a motion to put this out to public hearing?
I make a motion that we put it out for public hearing.
I'll
Have a
second.
motion by Carl, second by Mary Rose. Any additional questions, comments, or discussions?
Mr. Schindler, can I make a comment? This is Brandon Cohn. I'm obviously just an other attendee. I'm not a member, or should I wait for my comment for later?
Nah, go ahead and make it now.
Okay, thank you. I've just been listening and I've been following along the process, and this has been such a thoughtful process by so many people over so much time. I was just sitting here thinking as I've looked over things, thinking about equity and environmental justice, which is such an important policy theme. It's when we were talking about the land development code. I think it was in the citing section or some earlier section today. It just reminded me of the work that's being done about equity in all policy at the city level. And I just wanted to, remind everybody and make sure that that's something that people are satisfied with in the document that we put forward, because I know that's something that people care about and have discussed, and something that I expect will be a topic of public comment. And, this group deserves to show up at that public comment and represent that that's something they've considered and talked about and thought about, and that it's reflected in the plan, and that's not an issue of contention for what otherwise is, I think, a really good plan. So I don't know if that's a helpful insight or not, or timely, but I wanted to just say something before the meeting ended.
Brandon, would that be something that should be reflected in our marketing efforts as well? I think there would be more public, appeal or engagement if there were message points within that we would incorporate within our media pieces.
I don't have a real great insight on that, Mr. Brazley. I just, it's just, I watch a lot of city council meetings and have served on the council and have been involved in things. And clearly equity is central to all the policy making that we're doing. And I was just sort of thinking forward to what the public meeting hearing might be like and what kind of issues people might raise and what we might expect them to want to talk about. And that's obviously a natural one and one that makes a lot of sense and one that the community cares about. So I kind of wanted to flag it before this whole discussion disappeared and there wasn't an opportunity to say anything. So, I wish I would have said it earlier if I would have thought of it earlier, but I thought of it now. So for what it's worth.
I think also if that's a good point that you bring up. I would think maybe the proper place for that to be addressed in this plan, if we specifically address it, would be where we interface with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Also, I guess I've got a question that maybe we can look at as we move forward on this is where that would fit into any consistency determination that we might be required to do or by the state for any siting issues that might come up in the future. It might be worth just a question in the next time you have a conversation with the state people. Have they ever run into this before? What's their view on that? As a part of a consistency determination we might be required to do.
I can definitely bring that up with the state. I think that the goal of any consistency determination or planning and design approval process is to make sure that the public is heard. And I think to a certain extent, how we get the word out there about what is being proposed through our advertising and marketing helps us ensure that people have their say. And I know that that's a big emphasis with the state whenever we're citing a facility, is that the public has to know. It's a tough thing nowadays to be able to get the word out to people because they get their news and information in so many different ways. But I think it's incumbent upon us that if we do one of these things, is to make sure that we do a fantastic job of making sure that the word is out there to the impacted community.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I think that's a very pertinent comment. Do we have any additional questions or comments?
I would like to, this is Susan Hart. I would like to ask about the November 14th date. I assume that the board will be present during the presentation of the 5-year plan to the public. And are we meeting, will it be a 5:30 time as we normally meet? Or do you have an idea about that?
You talking about?
Oh, go ahead. I was getting ready to say, I don't think it's a public hearing. There's a requirement that all the board members be present. We have to hold a public hearing. It's nice if as many board members that could be there as possible. Okay. Also, I think you bring up another issue. Good point is that maybe this public hearing should be at a later hour. To afford those people that work all day long, to afford them the opportunity to make it. Too often times you see public meetings scheduled that conflict with people that have to work. So I think we probably ought to take that into account when we schedule this thing. Maybe it should not be at 5:30. Maybe it should be a little bit later.
Okay, and then my other question is if something comes up that will be considered in amending or adding to or changing a 5-year plan, if something results from the public from that meeting, it would be helpful if the board members were there to hear that, to be a part of that discussion. So I was thinking you would be expecting us to be there.
I would hope that everybody could be there. Like I said, I don't think there's a legal requirement that the board members be present at the public hearing, but I think it certainly is a good idea if we could all be there.
Okay.
So we can amend this public notice, and this is what would be published in the newspaper, is what's on your screen. So we could amend that to start at 6:30.
Well, that's actually what it says right now, Pete. It says 6:30.
Oh, I see that.
Public hearing scheduled, a date not set, at 6:30 p.m.
It says 5:30 on what I'm looking at.
Really?
So there was
What's on the screen?
Okay,
what
well,
was sent out did not have the dates and times in it.
okay,
It
well,
was just the base.
6:30, and that's what I had put it on my calendar for. So, all right.
Okay. So we can change that to 6:30.
Yeah. Does the rest of the board members think that's adequate? 6:30?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good.
And then the vote on November 17th, that's a vote of the board. That's not a regular meeting day, but it would be an in-person vote, correct?
Yes, it would be a special called meeting.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you all for that. Any other comments, suggestions?
I would suggest that we go ahead and call the motion and vote on the 5-year plan that we have on the motion we have on the floor right now.
All right. We're calling the question. All those in favor of putting this out for public notice at the schedule as presented by the document that was on the screen signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, hearing none. Pete, you have your marching orders. Go ahead and get that advertised, and we'll do the 30-day public comment period. What are board members, if we get during this public comment period, if we get written public comments, would board members like to see them as they come in so that you're not inundated with comments on the day of the public hearing, or you're not inundated with comments when we hold a special board meeting? And would that be a problem, Pete, for you to forward to board members public comments as they come in?
I don't think that would be a problem if we can do it maybe once every week, so that it's not like an everyday thing. We kind of lose track of things. I'm not sure how many public comments that we'll get. I know that one of the public hearings that we conducted had over 1,000 written comments. So I don't expect 1,000. I really don't expect that many for this plan.
Well, what you could possibly also do is if you do get large number of comments that all say the same thing, you could summarize that and say, 15 commenters said this.
Okay. We can do that.
I have a request of Pete. Can you send out a copy of the document that was on the screen with the correct dates and times on it?
I will do so right now.
Okay.
That would conclude the advisory committee report unless, Bruce, do you have anything you want to add or any comments you want to make on this?
The only thing that I would like to say is a great thanks to all the advisory committee members for their efforts on this document. I'm sure there's varying opinions on some of the items, but I think we got as good a product as we could get to and get it in your hands in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I guess, Bruce, on behalf of the board, I would like to ask you to thank all the board members effusively for all the work I know that you guys have put in over the last number of months. I know this hasn't been easy, and we really, really appreciate it.
I would like to second that. I went to most of those meetings and listened to them, and it was an amazing amount of dedication and professionalism and expertise that was shared. And I think that the advisory council deserves a lot of our congratulations. And also all of our staff has done a wonderful job on this as well.
Yeah, well said, Mary Rose.
And if I could, I would like to thank everybody that has participated, from the stakeholders through the committee members to the board members that have given input, and to our team, our staff, Karen, Diane, and on. I mean, it really has been a lot of work, but I do believe that we came out with the best plan that we can do. And I'm looking forward to getting started on it.
Is there anything else you need to bring up on this particular item, Bruce, Bruce, Pete, or any other board members?
I have nothing more, Chairman Shanley.
Okay, thank everybody for that. We have one more item listed on the agenda, and that's the staff report.
Oh,
Said pop-up drop-off. I don't know if that was left over from the last agenda, but I will go ahead and just announce that we have one on October 29th at Fleet Services on Newburgh. So hope, come on out if you have something to recycle.
Is that the
Karen,
last one of the season? Is that the
Is that
last
what?
one of the season?
No, we have one more November 19th in Fern
Oh,
Creek.
okay.
I was thinking that the Fern Creek one was first, and
Oh.
the location was a little bit in question. So
Yeah, we still have to confirm some details on the 19th, but we'll get the word out if anything changes, any major changes.
And do you have anything under the announcements, Pete?
I do not.
All right. Thanks again to everybody involved in this. Thanks to board members, advisory committee members, and anybody else who participated in this. If there are no other comments from board members, staff, or the public, I guess we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Susan Hart seconds.
Okay, thank you all. Meeting is officially adjourned at 6:46 p.m. We will see everybody at the public hearing.
All right. Bye-bye.
In person.
Thank you all.
Nice.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.